Hello, everyone. I hope all of you are doing very well. I hope that in the middle of our pandemic that we're experiencing right now, that each of you are staying safe. What do we got to do to stay safe? We got to wear our mask. We got to wash our hands as often as possible. We have to stay our distance. And, of course, spread the word. Let everyone know that you are following the rules to make sure that you and your family are safe. Well, we know that it's the holiday season. We just came out of Thanksgiving, but we're headed right into Christmas. And guess what? It's the time and the season when we are thinking about everyone because we're buying gifts for the family and for friends. But guess what? This is a time to also remember to think about yourself. Our topic for today is self-care. So as we are thinking about our family, our friends, we're buying all the gifts and getting ready to just give out all the wonderful presents, remember that you also have to think about yourself. Not only during the Christmas season, but always, 365 a year, 7 days a week. All right, we have to think about ourselves and to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. So again, the topic is the importance of self-care. My name is Nicolette Gordon, and I am the Sync Family Counselor, and I'm here to present for this portion of the year our second parent workshop. So let's get right into it. Our objectives for today. Again, we're going to get into some self-care basics. After that, we are going to talk about 6 domains. What I mean by that is 6 areas of focus that we need to look at when it comes to thinking about ways that we can take care of ourselves. Now, the second portion of our training is about connecting with community. And if we have enough time, I'm going to touch on that a little bit, the importance of connecting with community, and then some categories of resources that we can begin to look at. So let's jump right in. Self-care basics. All right, let's get into it. Key to live a balanced life. All right, so often, like I mentioned when we started, we think about so many other individuals, right? But we don't spend time thinking about ourselves. But guess what? It is so important to living a balanced life. We have to make a priority in terms of putting ourselves first. So that is my first challenge to you. All right? My first challenge, putting yourself first. Self-care, it means different things to different people. So what may look like self-care to you may not be for the next person. But again, it's what matters to you and what works to fulfill the goals and objectives for you. Know why you're doing it, right? Just like I said a few minutes ago, if it doesn't work for you, it may work for the next person. But when you're done, how do you feel at the end of it? Do you feel refreshed? Do you feel rejuvenated? So it's important to know why you're doing what you're doing. And then the next thing, and I think I have a sneaky suspicion, most of us don't know how to do that next one. We have to learn to say no. Let me challenge you right now. Let me hear everybody say no. All right. All right. Thank you. Yes. No. Learning to say no. Because sometimes when we don't say no, we put more stress on ourselves, right? Trying to meet so many more needs, but then we forget to fill that space with doing something for ourselves. One second. Let me get my mouse here. Okay, there we go. My mouse wasn't working for me either. Okay. The next one, identify your boundaries. We got to know our boundaries. We got to know our limits. We got to know our maximum capacity, right? So that we can truly connect to what our boundaries are. Because then when we overstep our boundaries, we don't know, we're just like, you know what? We don't have time for ourselves. And it's so important to know your boundaries so that you can definitely give yourself the time that we need to rejuvenate. And the next thing is, self-care doesn't have to be something big. sometimes we think that, oh, we got to take this major trip, but we don't have to do that. Again, it goes back to what I said a few bullet points up. We have to know why we're doing what we're doing so it has the maximum effect that we want it to have. All right? And as I mentioned, or I didn't mention, I failed to mention, the things that you see on the table, I'm going to get into them a little bit later on as I move through the presentation to let you know why I have the things that I have on the table today. Let's get into it. The first domain of self-care is the personal. And I think this is the area that most often we hear about, the areas that we work on, which is great, but I'm going to introduce you to 5 additional areas that we also need to think about. So let's jump into the first one, personal self-care. We're talking about our sleep, we're talking about nutrition, exercise, and health maintenance. If I asked you, how many of you get 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night, how many of you can honestly raise your hand? I can't see you out there in virtual land, but how many of you can honestly raise your hand and say that you get 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night? You know what? Sometimes I can't even raise my hand because I'm not getting the 7 hours of sleep. I may get 6, but 7 to 8 doesn't always happen. But it's important. It's important as it relates to rejuvenation. We have long days, long days. We're taking care of the children, we're taking care of our spouses, we may have an elderly family member that we're taking care of, we're working, we're coming home, we're cooking, all these things that need to happen, right? And sleep is one of those things that help us to rejuvenate from the long days that we have and the many things that we have to do throughout that day. So getting a full night's rest is important. Next is nutrition. Again, I can't see you in virtual land, but if I asked, how many of you have a fully balanced meal at least 5 days out of the week? Can't see, I'm gonna put my glasses down for a second, right? At least, right? Where we're cooking and we're making sure we have our, all the food groups on our plate, we're making sure we have some vegetables, a little starch, a little meat, all of that, a little dairy. Balanced nutrition, think about it. Are we eating too much sugars? Some of us, we like our, our sugars, our chocolate and candy and all of that, our ice cream, right? It's good to have that sometimes, right? But are we balancing that out? Right, where we're not overdoing it when it comes to the amount of sugar intake that we have. The next thing is exercise. And remember when I said it doesn't have to be big? It doesn't have to be big. Guess what? You can go for a walk. You and the entire family, get the kids, the dog, the cat. Everybody can go for a walk around the block, right? And it doesn't even have to be a long walk. When you're saying, oh, it doesn't even have to be a long walk. Same way you can take the family outside, play in the backyard, right? It doesn't have to be big, but it's all about doing something each and every day and finding some consistency with it, right? Finding some consistency, but doing something to get the muscles going, to get your energy going, but definitely doing something, right? It could be as simple as getting up and stretching, right? Just stretch on, right? Do some over the shoulder, bend over, touch your toes. I can't do that now because then you won't see me, right? Touch your toes, just, a few squats, right? Just stretch those muscles. Get the oxygen flowing. And again, when it comes to exercise, sometimes individuals get into more intense, strenuous workout. If that's your thing, go ahead. But if it's that, I can walk around the block and come on back, okay? That's all you can do that, all right? So it's so important for us to get our exercise on a consistent basis, okay? Consistent. See, if, I had folks in class, I have one person in class today. We got an in-person, right? So I can start asking some questions. Yay!
Sure can.
Yes. All right, let me see what else I'm missing as it relates to exercise, right? And when it comes to exercise, moderate your intensity, right? So if you usually walk a block, if you go outside, try to do 2 blocks the next time, and as you build up, try to do 3. Okay, it's important to build up and change it up a little bit so you can work more muscle groups in your body. The next one is health maintenance, right? Some of y'all not gonna like what I say about this one, right? But health maintenance is about your preventative health, right? So are you going for your regular checkups? Your regular dental cleaning, your eye exam. Y'all not gonna really like this one. Are you taking medication as it's prescribed, right? Some of us have medicine that we're supposed to take, but we don't take it as it is prescribed, right? We don't take all of it. The moment we start feeling better, we stop taking the medicine. How many toes did I step on out there? All right, okay. We're not going to say anything about that one. But it's so important for us to be compliant when it comes to our medication, to get our regular preventative, right? And we just talking about those regular things like your annual visits to your primary care doctor, your annual visits to OBG, or any other kind of doctors that you see, all right? So preventative. And sometimes this area may be a little difficult because guess what it means? It means that we have to do a lifestyle change, right? So if we're used to not getting up and moving, guess what? It's about getting up to move, to start to move. However little or much you can do, it's important to just begin to move. Next, so the first domain, and by the way, I have prizes. So hopefully you are, my TV's trying to go out on me. Hopefully you're paying attention. So I told you I had one person in the audience live with us today, right? So hopefully you're paying attention, right? So let me ask this question. What's the first domain? What's the first one we talked about?
We talked about sleep. Exercise. Self-care.
Yes.
And
that's all under the personal.
Right.
Right? So the first group is personal.
Personal, right.
Yes. All right. So the second one is
professional.
The professional.
Okay.
Right? I know sometimes we don't think about self-care as it relates to the professional component of our lives, but it is just as important, especially during this season of the pandemic. So many of us are working from home. And guess what? We do not know when to cut it off. We don't know when to cut it off. So whereas if we were in person, we would go to work, we'd work 9 to 5, and we'll come home and we'll start something else. So much is happening in our homes right now. We are, not only parents, we're workers, we're helping with the kids during school. So many things is happening, right? And our days are extending. So it's so important for us to have healthy boundaries. Remember we talked about boundaries? Even more so now to have healthy boundaries as it relates to our professional. So let's look at this. Job stress and burnout. We could get burned out with work, even more so now, right? Of all the things I just mentioned. Burnout, you may have excessive workload, you may have conflict on the job, lack of security, maybe you're over or under promoted, conflicts with coworkers or bosses. All these things are happening. So it's so important for us to watch our professional burnout. Okay. Next is your job engagement, right? How engaged are you when it comes to your work? The commitment, the satisfaction, are you a high performance person? What type of worker are you as it relates to how engaged you are in your job, how focused you are, right? Some of this can also cause added stress. So we need to look at our area of professional work and how that may be adding stress, and the importance of also, again, creating boundaries as it relates to your professional life. Professional self-care involves the attention to your workload, time management, your professional work, your professional role, okay? How you engage with your coworkers, that social aspect as it relates to your coworkers. All of that is important as it relates to your job. Another one, depending on where you're working, there's also occupational hazards. What am I talking about? When you're working, are you making sure, like, if you have gear that you have to wear, are you making sure that you wear it? If you're working in a really hazardous environment, are you following the rules? Right? Are you following the rules such that you are safe in your work environment? Okay? The next thing is compassion, satisfaction. And that is an area of, are you enjoying or are you satisfied in the work that you're doing? Do you do it to the utmost? Right? We have to consider that. And again, like I said, when I started this component is we are all, or so many of us, let me say that, are still working virtually from home. It's important for us to create boundaries such that we are not overworking ourselves and, again, cutting into our self-care time. Also, even though we're working from home, one of the things that I've had discussions with some of my colleagues is the fact that we don't think that we need to take time. So we have sick time accruing, we have personal time that we need to use, that you're going to lose by the end of the year. But guess what? Because we're working from home, we don't remember that, I can take a sick day to go to the doctor, to go take care of my health. Or I can take a personal day so that, guess what? At least today's the day I don't have to work. I can relax a little bit, right? And rejuvenate. So something to think about. Even though we're working from home, use your time, because guess what? You're about to lose it. We only got about 2 more weeks left in the year, 2 or 3, right? So use those sick time. Our first 2 domains was what? Personal, and then
Professional.
Professional. Our third is relational self-care. Right? Do we think about relational self-care?
No.
Yeah. Relational self-care refers to the efforts we make to maintain and enhance our interpersonal connections with others, right? And wow, the pandemic, it really affected our relation with our family and friends. So many people miss out on gathering with family and friends, especially during the holiday because of the pandemic. But again, you hear it repeatedly in so many ways, the importance of maintaining your connection with people, family, and friends. And one of the things I noticed is that during the pandemic, we have become so creative in how we engage with others. I got to tell this quick story. When we talk about how we engage with others, and I had so much fun. Here you see on the table, I have my facial spa supplies. And I recently got into really getting into facials and, taking care of my skin. And a girlfriend of mine had a Sparty, S-P-A-R-T-Y Sparty. And it was the most fun ever. One person actually walked us through the steps of doing a facial, and we just laughed and we made fun of each other trying to put on masks and the whole 9 yards. But it was so much fun. We were on Zoom for about an hour and a half, and I had the best time learning how to do a complete facial. So of course I have my entire kit here that I'm going to start doing on my own, right? So taking care of self. So so that was an example of how I engaged in some relational self-care. I made sure that I was able to attend the party and I learned something new. So it is so important during this time that we connect with our family and friends in the most creative ways that we know possible. When the pandemic first started, I remember getting on a Zoom and my girlfriends and I had an 80s party. We dressed up in outfits from the 80s that we can remember, and we just got on Zoom. We had a DJ, one of my girlfriend's husband in the background playing, and we just had a wonderful time. All right, altruism. Altruism is about giving back. It's about some selfless, couldn't say that, selfless acts, right? It's about doing something for others, thinking more about others than we think about ourselves, and giving back. Many of you have probably done it before, when you do your volunteer at different places, how good it feels to give back your time and your energy and your efforts to others. So again, this is another way of connecting with other people in a relational way. Virtual social networks. Of course, we're doing a lot of this right now. So much of this, right? And before, wow, we used it probably just to kind of see what's going on with other people. But now we have this intentional purpose behind using virtual social networks to keep in touch with the individuals that we can't really get closer to during this time. So again, that's another way for self-care, is to connect virtually with your family and friends. All right, so hopefully you're still following me so far. We got personal, we have professional, and relational. So hopefully, so far you're starting to think of ways that you can begin to generate your own personal list of how to begin to identify in these areas things that you can do for self-care. All right? So as I'm going through them, start jotting down some things that you think you can do in each of the domains mentioned. Moving right along. Here you have your emotional self-care. Wow. How many of you ever thought about emotional self-care? Right? This is practices that are engaged in to safeguard against or address negative emotional experiences, as well as those intended to create or enhance positive emotional experience and well-being, right? We have to safeguard those negative emotions and also look at the positive. So some of the negative is, how we respond to our emotions. For example, do we move to like overeating, undereating, illegal drugs, alcohol, engaging in injurious behaviors, right? Lashing out, withdrawing, ignoring certain things that we need to pay attention to. We have to make sure that we're not shifting into unhealthy behaviors. Those unhealthy methods, they only relieve you for a moment. But again, it's also affecting some of what we talked about earlier. It's affecting your health. It's affecting your health, It's affecting your sleep and other things that are happening in your life. So the first bullet point as I started to talk about, is identifying and replacing destructive ways of coping. So if you know you're engaging in destructive ways of coping, try to replace those. Try to find something else that is healthy for you and for the family. And again, reduce negative emotional experiences. How do we do that? I'm talking about yoga, mindfulness practices, engaging in things that you enjoy doing. And the things on the table today represents things that I enjoy doing. And I have been doing more and more over the last couple of months. And then the last bullet point is increasing your well-being and happiness, right? Your happiness, one author writes, is a combination of three primary factors: a genetically fixed happiness, life circumstances, and intentional activity. And only one of those are really in your control. It is the intentional activity, right? And that's about putting yourself first, right? Because like they always say on the airplane, put your mask on first before you put on those around you, right? We have to be healthy enough to be able to do that. If we can't breathe, how can we help someone else? So it's so important to put ourselves first. Next, we have our psychological self-care, right? These are the things that we do that, you know what? We're doing it to kind of pass the time. We're doing it because, you know what? It helps us to relax, right? So psychological self-care is about practices aimed at pursuing and satisfying our intellectual needs and purposefully and reflective efforts to understand and attend to our overall self, right? Intellectual needs. And that could be a wide range of things. So is it like listening to music? Is it humor? Is it, some people like to debate, getting into a debate. It could be going to a poetry event. It could be just going to the cinema, having great conversation with family and friends, right? Another way to think of it is just think of it as a brief mind vacation. Sometimes some of us just don't want to think about the fact that we have to make decisions at work. We just want to be in an environment where we make no decisions, because maybe at work, that's all we do is make decisions, right? So think about it as, you know what? My brain is on a break, right? And we're going to leave it at that. Self-awareness and mindful reflection of self, right? Really, it's about just taking a moment to learn and grow. Look at, who you are. Sometimes we don't take up enough time to even do that, right? Am I learning? Am I growing? Am I, the person I want to be? Is there something I need to do better or less of, right? Just a self-assessment, a reflection on self, right? Mindfulness. Mindfulness is about just paying attention to a particular way or a particular thing that you're doing. And just be kind of just in the moment, right? Non-just judgmental of yourself, just be in the moment. I've had a client who I shared the practice of mindfulness with, and she practiced mindfulness by going outside, and her eyes landed on ants. And she just watched ants move around, watch them pick up food and just kind of go to their nest, whatever they were doing, and she just watched them, right? That could be a relaxing activity just to practice mindfulness for some, all right? So the last domain is the spiritual domain, okay? either faith-based, secular, or non-faith-based, right? But what kind of practices do you engage in? So the spiritual self-care practices creates a space to reflect on our own inner needs and our role or place within the world and the universe. So faith-based self-care may mean attending church service, praying, reading your Bible, attending a small group, and being with other believers. Non-faith-based may mean a practice of meditation, just connecting with the environment. I don't know, but it's all about spiritual self-care based on where you are, what you practice, and making that a part of your self-care regimen. So I have gone through the 6 domains of self-care, and I am not sure if there's anyone on the virtual, but hopefully you've been writing them down. If you are, 6 domains. So as we think about self-care and the 6 domains, some added information to help you as it relates to how to begin to think about generating a list or generating things that you could do in the 6 domains. Think about your 5 senses, right? So I am someone who loves and appreciates scents, right? So on the table you see candles. I love scents, so I will spend money on candles because I love a strong scent just flowing through my home. So when you think about the senses, sight, are you one who likes to look at beautiful sceneries, look at pictures, read a book, look at the trees, be by the water? I don't know. But do you enjoy things as it relates to your sight? The next thing is hearing. Do you like listening to music? A certain type of music. Smell, fragrances. Do you like the scents? Taste. Is it a food? Is it a particular thing that makes you happy, right? And touch. To cuddle, to hug your loved one, to relax with your pet or a blanket. I bought my big teddy bear because sometimes I just love to cuddle up next to my big teddy bear, right? I mentioned before the facial. I'm getting ready to really get into my facial practices, and that falls in line with touch, the idea of, giving your face a massage. The other thing I like to do is to do little coloring puzzles, right? And for sight, for me, I take pictures, or I love to look at photo books of, world-renowned photographers. I love going through the books that I have and just feeling inspired, and energized by looking at the pictures. So again, as we're thinking about the 6 domains, I've added the 5 senses as a way to start thinking about things that you like to do, and if it speaks to one of your senses. Next, I also would like you to think about your self-care as it relates to the 4 seasons, right? Winter, spring, summer, and fall. What are the things that you enjoy doing during the seasons? And I know you probably saying I can't do what I normally do because of the pandemic. I totally understand. But again, we are trying to make a plan for self-care. So we will one day be post-COVID, right? So begin to make a plan based on the seasons, thinking about those things that you enjoy doing throughout the 4 seasons. And I don't have enough time to go through the community part, but I will give you a quick summary on what I wanted to do about community. And that's basically to understand that there are so many resources out in our community, right? The importance of reaching out. There may be something that you're interested in. Guess what? Somebody may be offering that, you know, for you as the parents and the adults as well as the children. So take some time to just like do some research. Find out what's in the community, because there's probably something, the exact thing that you need somewhere out there for you to connect to. And again, connecting with community, we can do it internally, right? Connecting with our family and friends, like having an internal sense of resiliency. How do I bounce back, right? So that's one aspect. And then I'm losing my voice here. The other is external, right? Connecting to schools and community agencies, mentors, you know, people in your circle, people in your church circle, people in your job circle. But the main thing I wanted to talk about is that to connect with community in terms of what you need for you and your family. And again, some quick categories of resource: health, mental health. And mental health is so important during the season. You know, we're experiencing something that we have never, unprecedented. So it's so important that if you're feeling anxiety, stress, worried, anything like that, depressed, reach out to a mental health care professional. Mentorship, child care, and respite care. So in summary, we have our 6 domains: physical, professional, relational, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. Also, consider tapping into your 5 senses and the 4 seasons as you begin to develop a self-care plan. And again, your community support is external and internal, and to begin to develop a list of resources that you can use for future reference. That's it for me for today. I hope that something I said in this training stood out for you, that you will begin to be intentional about putting yourself on your calendar. So many other things are placed on your calendar, but guess what? We have to put ourselves on our calendar. And we know that when we put it on our calendar, we're more likely to make it happen. So I hope that each of you are making self-care happen in all these 6 domains. So again, stay safe until I see you next time for our next parent workshop. Have a great evening, everyone.